Sexual Escalation Techniques: How to Touch Her Body in Ways That Escalate Desire, Passion, and Lust, by Lloyd Lester. The purpose of this report is to share some powerful ways of touching a woman physically in order to escalate her desire, passion, and lust for you. If you are familiar with even the basics of female sexuality, you would know that women are very different from men, especially when it comes to the process of turning them on, specifically when using physical touch to do so. As such, if some of the tips in this report seem a bit strange to you at first, especially if you are a man, remind yourself that these tips and techniques are designed specifically for ramping up a woman's sexual desire. Therefore, it would be in your best interest to pay close attention to the tips and techniques shared below. More so if they seem very different from how a man would prefer to be turned on. And definitely try these techniques out the next time you have the opportunity and desire to turn a woman on, because this stuff works extremely well. But note, while the individual escalation techniques shared in this report can work on just about any woman, certain techniques will have much stronger effects on some women than on others. To find out which ones work best on the woman you're going to be with, you'll need to pay attention to how strongly she responds to each one. Some important distinctions. So yes, men and women are different. Big surprise there, right? And these differences become painfully obvious when it comes to sex and the varied sexual preferences of the two species when they start to relate to each other sensually and sexually. In the upcoming sections of this report, I will share many different areas of a woman's body that are proven hotspots and that can be used to turn her on easily and exponentially. Unfortunately, these areas are also often ignored by most guys because they don't know about them or they just don't realize how effective these areas can be in turning women on. Listen, women are dying to be touched in some of these areas, and you could very well be the first man to ever touch your woman in these deeply satisfying ways. However, as beneficial as it can be to know about these areas of a woman's body, this escalation strategy isn't just about knowing where to touch her. It's much more than that. Yes, knowing where to touch her is a great start, and if that is all that you learn to do, you would still be giant steps ahead of most men in the female pleasure and satisfaction department. But knowing how and when to touch her in those special places can be even more beneficial. Actually, it can make the difference between being a good lover and an amazing, incredible lover. It can be the difference between being a lover that she had a good time with or being the kind of lover that she would remember for the rest of her life. We'll cover the how and when in this report as well, in some detail. For example, knowing how to pleasure her between her legs is great. But attempting to do so immediately after kissing her on the mouth for the very first time is just not going to work. It will seem too sudden or rushed to her, somewhat uncomfortable, and, well, unnatural. Most men believe that the faster they can move from the first kiss to taking her panties off, the better their odds can be of having sex with the woman. Again, most men are mistaken. From the woman's perspective, this is not typically the way it works. In fact, it is the exact opposite of how she prefers it. Sure, there can be certain situations where women get caught up in the heat of the moment and get to the intercourse phase within just a few minutes of being kissed by that particular man for the very first time. But it usually doesn't happen unless the guy has already escalated her in some way, if not physically, then at least mentally and/or emotionally. Rushing to try to get her panties off is the opposite of sexual escalation. And men are always surprised to find that the woman has suddenly changed her mind about making out or having sex. Instead, it's a lot more effective to turn up the heat for her sexually, so that she will want you to take her clothes off, rather than to rush and often fumble while trying to get her naked, and maybe even get a lot of resistance from her along the way, because she's just not ready to go there yet. Anticipation is also a powerful aphrodisiac, thus a very effective sexual escalation tool to keep at your disposal. Getting her to crave your touch in increasingly erotic ways is a much easier path to sexual ecstasy for the both of you. So, knowing how and when to touch a woman in some of these hotspots or erogenous zones is a very important piece of the sexual escalation formula. And don't worry, we'll go over all of the details in this report. In fact, the term erogenous zones conveys that there are multiple zones in a woman's body. And it would be quite helpful for you to view these zones as layers or levels, which are similar to the various levels in a video game, or even the different levels or floors in an elevator or lift. The point of the analogy is, you can't skip a level in a game to get to a higher level. You can't jump from level 1 to level 3. Similarly, if you're in an elevator, you can't just jump to the third floor from the first floor. The only way to get to the third floor is to pass through the second floor. Sexual escalation and navigating through a woman's erogenous zones works in a very similar way. Things have to be carried out in a somewhat sequential and seemingly natural progression. If you try to skip a level in order to jump to a higher level, you could turn her off, cause her physical discomfort or pain, and even annoy or insult her. All of that would equate to no sex or no more future sex for you. A few final points about the various levels of sexual escalation. While you can't skip an entire level to get to the next higher level, you can jump around within each level. In fact, it's recommended that you move around within the level to keep a woman on her toes. You can also go back and forth between the current and all previous levels. Again, it is recommended that you do jump around a bit, so as to mix things up, keep it interesting and exciting, and even make the entire experience a bit unpredictable for her. For example, going back to first or second base from third base is allowed, and also recommended. Otherwise, things can get too predictable for her, and therefore boring. And let's be honest, most men are as predictable or boring during sex, because they tend to go down her body in a straight line. They start at her lips, then move down to her neck, then her breasts, then stomach, and finally to her vagina. And if she's lucky, these guys won't skip any of these spots down the predictable line. So jumping around within a level, as well as from the current level to all previous levels, is highly recommended. Not only will it keep her on her toes, it will also build anticipation, desire, and response potential. Lastly, when you're ready to touch her, no matter which level you're in, don't be wishy-washy about it. Don't hesitate, don't be timid. Touch her boldly, touch her confidently, touch her like a man. That, in and of itself, can be highly arousing for a woman to experience. More on this later. Where to start? So, you already know that a woman needs to be taken through the sexual escalation process in a particular sequence. But where and how should a guy start the process? Most men believe that kissing a woman on her lips or mouth is where it all begins. They believe that it is where they should start the process. However, such is not the case when dealing with most women. And this fallacy is the reason why so many men get shut down when they try to escalate from first kiss to sex. Or they get turned down from even getting that first kiss to begin with. Yes, kissing is an extremely powerful escalation tool, if used correctly. But it is not where this sensual dance begins. A lot more has to happen before that first kiss, especially if you're hoping for that kiss to assist you in further escalating the woman sexually, and eventually leading her into wanting you inside of her. For instance, a woman needs to feel certain emotions before she will be ready to allow things to get hot and heavy. These emotions can be brought about by what you say and also by how you touch her. Specifically, she wants to feel comfort and safety around you, and with you, for starters. So you would have to start out by taking on the protector or nurturer role. It seems odd, I know, but stick with me here. It will all start to make a lot more sense very soon. Then, after she's able to feel safe and comfortable with you, she would want to feel like a woman around you, which is something she doesn't get to feel around most men, unfortunately. That means you'll have to be a man. Imagine that. So next, you would want to display some masculine qualities, such as confidence and boldness, and even some dominant traits, which you would use to illustrate the process of claiming her in a powerful, sexy, yet nurturing and protective way. These are all primal emotions and courting rituals that have been ingrained into women since the cave-dwelling days. Touching her in some of the above ways will also relate to her that you have been around women before, and that you're comfortable touching a woman without trying to feel her up. Trust me, this stuff is important to her. As mentioned earlier, she wants to be with a man, not a boy who's touching a woman for the very first time and/or is afraid to touch her. We'll go over each of these touches and methods in upcoming sections of this report, as well as how and when to use them in the most effective ways. And, of course, after you take her through each of the levels, she will want you to touch her in increasingly sexual and erotic ways, until she's ready to completely give herself to you sexually. You see, as discussed earlier, it's much more effective to turn up the heat for her sexually so that she will want you to take her clothes off than it is to rush or fumble through the process of taking her clothes off, which is what most men do, when she's not ready to go there yet. Okay, let's go over the various levels of touch escalation. The 4 levels of effective touch escalation. So, the point of sexual escalation is to usually start from 0, a cold or neutral state, and begin to touch her in ways that turn her on more and more, so that she wants you to touch her in more and more intimate, sexual, and increasingly erotic ways, until she's so crazy with desire that she is lusting and ready to have sex with you. Notice, again, how the above process is very different from what most men do, and from what most women are used to when interacting with men in these types of sensual encounters and settings. And that is why this stuff works so well. For this sexual escalation process, we'll start things out at the stage where both the man and woman's clothes are still on, since that's where things usually start out in real life prior to people having sex. I'll also give you some tips that can be used to turn her on, whether you're in an existing relationship with a woman or you're about to go out on the very first date with her. Level 1. Creating safety, comfort, and connection. The first level of touching is about displaying and sharing your protector/nurturer energy with her, and to also get her to experience some level of connection with you. This level enables you to communicate to the woman and say to her non-verbally that you're safe with me, I've got you, or even we have a special connection here, and we can relax and be ourselves with each other. Creating this sense of comfort, safety, and a sense of connection in a woman is an important initial step before attempting to get her aroused and ready to have sex with you. While it is certainly possible to get a woman aroused and horny before creating comfort, safety, and connection in her, it's usually a waste of time to do so. Because most women will not be willing to sleep with you if they don't feel safe and comfortable with you, even if they are already attracted to you. And many women won't even sleep with you if they don't feel an emotional or at least a mental connection with you first. As mentioned earlier in the report, you shouldn't try to jump to higher levels in the process without passing through all of the previous levels first. So, let's start at the beginning, by touching her in protective and nurturing ways, in ways that create the sense of safety, comfort, and connection in her mind. Hands. Hold your hand out. so that she can put her hand in yours or at least reach it out for you to take. You can use this technique when leaving one location to go to another or to lead her somewhere. You can also use this while climbing up a flight of stairs, stepping over a curb, etc. Women are also often wearing heels, so offering them your hand during any uncharted territory or terrain is a good idea. But don't do it in a patronizing way. Put genuine caring or nurturing energy behind those moves or actions. If you're in a crowded venue and you both need to get through to the other side, you can do the above move, or simply reach down to take her hand and give her a reassuring smile, and then lead the way through the crowd while she's being shielded or protected behind you. These things can also make her feel a little bit like the princess being led gallantly by the hero, which is you. But don't let that analogy get to your head just yet. Back. The small of her back, the area on or just below her waistline at the base of her spine, is another spot that can be used to lead her. And it's a turn-on for women when men do it with a relaxed confidence. Read, don't touch her as if she's so delicate that she will break, but also don't push her so hard that she will trip or fall. Place your hand there firmly, open palm. Apply just a little pressure into that area and guide or support her when you're leading her through a doorway, walking up the stairs with her, when she's stepping over a curb, etc. Using your hand on her upper back can work too, if you're not comfortable touching her lower back. However, the lower back can have a much stronger mental and emotional effect on her. You can also use your hand on her lower back as a claiming gesture, to pull her in towards you when she's facing in your direction, for a hug or a kiss, or just to hold her close to you. For example, if the location you're in suddenly becomes more crowded or somewhat unpredictable, pulling her closer to you in this manner will non-verbally communicate to her that she's safe with you. When you do these moves, do them firmly, confidently, but with control. Again, you don't want her to trip or fall when you pull her in. Of course, if she's already standing close to you, you can use a swifter and firmer pull to bring her in closer, without hurting her or causing her pain. Once you've got her close to you, notice her breathing pattern and rhythm, and allow yourself to comfortably synchronize your breathing with hers. This is a subtle but powerful way to increase her comfort and connection with you. Neck. A woman's neck is a highly erogenous zone. However, for this first level, we're only aiming for comfort, safety, and connection, so we will only focus on the back of her neck. Place the palm of your open hand on the back of her neck and massage that entire back area from top to bottom. Be firm, but don't squeeze too hard. Grab as much area of the back of her neck as you can while doing the massage. If you grab a smaller area, it will simulate more of a pinching maneuver, which can be painful for some people. You can initiate the massage by saying, "Ooh, you've had a long day, haven't you? Here, come over here. This will help." If she sighs and tells you to do it harder, by all means, give her a stronger, firmer massage. Shoulders. You can also do the same for her shoulders, i.e., offer to relieve some of the stress she may be carrying there. If you notice her touching or pressing her shoulder, or tilting or stretching her neck to the side, or any other similar gestures that resemble trying to stretch or loosen up her neck and her shoulders, you can definitely use them as opportunities to help loosen her up. Or you could simply move naturally into a shoulder massage after you've loosened up the back of her neck. If you feel natural and comfortable about it, she will too. If you're timid or hesitant, she'll sense that too, and will mirror that energy as well. Note, getting her relaxed and loosened up is an effective way to grease up the entire escalation process. Feet. Although I'm putting feet under level 1, they can actually fit into other levels as well, depending on what you do with them and how you do it. Simply taking off or putting on a woman's shoe for her, if and when the opportunity to do so naturally presents itself, can be quite a turn-on for her while also being a nurturing gesture. And I'm not talking about women with foot fetishes either. Of course, there is also the infamous foot massage that almost all women love to get. While you can simply offer to give her a thoughtful massage for her aching feet, from her having to stand and walk all day, especially in high heels in some cases, some women can actually reach orgasm or near orgasm states just from a foot massage, depending on how they're wired and how good you are at giving foot massages. Note, due to the above fact, some women will not let you give them a foot massage if they don't already feel somewhat comfortable and safe with you, because they secretly know where it could lead. So, don't force or insist on giving them a foot rub or massage if they decline it. Timing and sequence can make all the difference. Also, don't offer to give her a foot massage just so that you can turn her on and get to have sex with her. As we touched on earlier, the intention you put behind your touches is very important and can easily be broadcast to her, even when you don't want her to know what you're thinking or planning. If you're going to offer her a foot rub or massage during level 1, keep it comfortable and safe for the most part. And get into it. Enjoy giving her enjoyment and relief. Don't just do it with an ulterior motive, or she'll definitely sense your intentions. Important: if you're not into touching another person's feet, no matter how hot she may be, if the thought of touching her feet turns you off, then do not do it. Don't offer her a foot rub or massage. Because, once again, she'll sense your discomfort and or disgust if you're not into it, and it will be a major turnoff for her, no matter how much she enjoys receiving attention to her feet. Level 2. Being sensually and boldly romantic. This is the level where you will want to start turning up the heat, so that she will become more than ready for you to kiss her. When it comes to sensuality and sexuality, most women, in most cases, prefer the man to lead them. Women find a masculine energy that's boldly leading them to be very attractive. So aside from being sensual and romantic, some of these touches will also signify the beginnings of the man claiming her, in the way a romantic hero would, which is something women find irresistible and incredibly arousing. A bold, confident man who does this comfortably, boldly, and unapologetically, while being sensual and warm, can turn women on quite easily. Women find that mix of bold and caring energy to be quite irresistible. Hair. Running your fingers through her hair, or even resting your hand on her hair while she's got her head on your chest or shoulder, can be sensual as well as nurturing. Note, if she's got a bunch of stuff in her hair like clips, pins, hair product, etc., or if it looks like she spent a lot of time on fixing her hair, be careful about getting your hands in there. She may not like it. Brushing a woman's hair, or even washing it in a later level, can also be nurturing while being sensual. Wait for a moment when she's brushing her hair. Gently take the brush from her and continue brushing it for her. Notice her reaction. Lips. Her lips are obviously a verified hotspot, but touching or kissing them directly, especially if she's not ready for it yet, can work against you. It's better to tease her a bit first. Graze it very gently with your finger or thumb, or do this for just her bottom lip. Make sure your hands are clean and don't smell funky. Go in for a close encounter, but only let the very edge of your lips touch the edge of hers, as you kiss her on the cheek instead. You get the idea. Make her desire an actual kiss from you. Later, you could use other objects, like fruit, candy, or even ice cubes, to trace her lips with. Ears. You can gently stroke the outer edge of her ear with your fingertip, kiss, lick, or even suck or nibble on her earlobes gently. Some women like the sensation of a tongue inside their ear, and some don't. You can also whisper something nice, romantic, or even naughty into her ear, especially if you're positioned behind her. For example, you could get her mind racing by saying, "You're going to get into so much trouble soon." Be sure to say it while smiling and with a sensual tone. Otherwise, it could be misinterpreted as something negative. Hands and arms. Kissing the back of her hand, and especially the back of her fingers, can be a huge turn-on for women, while also being very warm and tender. I've known some women who would get soaking wet between their legs just from receiving soft, sensual kisses to the back of their fingers. This works well if you've just left level 1 and want to build up the momentum. Take her hand in yours, slowly lift it up to your lips, and kiss it once or twice. Then, let it back down, but keep holding on to it. This can also be a good opportunity for you to tell her to come sit next to you, if she isn't already, instead of being across from you. Then, do the above move. After a minute or two, repeat the move, i.e., kiss the back of her hand or fingers again. But this time, do more than just 1 or 2 kisses. Cover her fingers with slow, soft kisses all over, from her fingernails to her knuckles. Observe any shifts in her breathing, deep sighs, etc. Those are all good signs. Note, keep the kisses dry for the most part. You shouldn't get your saliva all over her fingers. Armpits. The armpits can also be highly erogenous zones for many women, but they may not allow you access to this area unless she feels comfortable and safe with you and feels that she can trust you. Some women may not even know that their armpits can generate pleasure for them until some adventurous guy happens to try it out, and they both get to discover it together. So, experiment with her to find out whether it works or not, but be sure not to tickle. A good way to get to it is to slide your palms up the sides of her body, and as you're about to touch her armpits, start to turn your palms upward and use the outer edges of your palm to gently but firmly push up into her armpits. Your thumbs should be facing away from her body. Notice her reaction and proceed accordingly. Thigh. When she's sitting next to you, lay your open hand on her thigh, the one that's closest to you, just above her knee, and let it rest there comfortably. As your hand rests there, softly stroke her thigh using only the thumb of that same hand. You can also follow it up with a gentle squeeze using all of your fingers. This is another subtle claiming move. Tip: a great sneaky trick is to take her hand and put it on her thigh, while you're holding on to her hand. You can even slowly move it up and down a bit. Doing this will mess with her head a bit, in a good way, because it's still her hand that's touching and rubbing her thigh, so she'll feel in control. But you're the one actually doing it, which will turn her on. You can use the above technique for other touches as well. Just don't overdo it, or it might become too obvious to her what you're doing, and it will kill the effect. Face. Use the back of your fingers, the upper half portion, to gently stroke her cheek, and even her jawline. Look right into her eyes with a warm smile as you do this. This can be done, for example, after you've brushed her hair off her face with the tips of your fingers, palm facing away from her face. On the way back, your fingers can stroke her cheek. This touch can often be followed up with an endearing phrase like, "I like you," or even, "I love you," but not during the first date, obviously. It can even be followed up with a kiss if you feel she's ready, and especially if she gives you that warm, welcoming look and a smile. After the kiss, pull her body close to you and just enjoy the closeness. This is unlike what most men will do, which is to try and touch or fondle her everywhere else just because she let him kiss her. Chest. Before I get into this touch or technique, I'd like to clarify that we're actually referring to her chest here, not her breasts. In fact, these moves and techniques work best if you stay above her nipples and do not go anywhere near them, especially while you're in the second level. By not focusing on her breasts and nipples right away, not only will you be doing the exact opposite of what most men do, which is always good, you would also build anticipation in the woman's mind, which will further escalate her desire for more of your touch. Hug her from behind by putting your arm around her upper chest and pull her in close to you. Remember, chest only. Do not go near her breasts or nipples. And give her a soft kiss on the head or ear. You can also do this while sitting down next to each other by nudging her upper body closer toward you and somewhat in front of you, so that part of her upper back is resting on your chest. This can be a lead-in for another highly arousing move, coming up below. We're still going to focus on her chest, not her breasts, specifically on the muscle fibers below her collarbone and above her nipples. That entire area in between is almost always ignored by men, even though it is a highly erogenous zone on a woman's body. In actuality, there is erectile tissue in this area that gets filled with blood and actually grows in size as well as sensation when stimulated properly through the use of touch. This is also another area where women tend to accumulate stress and tension from carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders as they go about their busy day or week. Therefore, by massaging and opening up this area, you will also relieve and relax her significantly, which would increase her overall capacity for experiencing pleasure even more. Consequently, she may even experience more intense and powerful orgasms when you get to that stage, but you can consider it a bonus. Note: remember, the more relaxed she is overall, physically, mentally, and emotionally, the more pleasure she will be able to experience and enjoy during every stage of this process, and especially during her orgasm. Start by gently touching, stroking, and rubbing this special chest area of her body. Warm up the muscle fibers and open her chest up. As more blood flows into this area, the rest of her chest, including her breasts, will also experience more blood flow and become more engorged and stimulated. And you didn't even have to touch her breasts to get them stimulated, but she will want you to. By not touching her breasts or nipples directly, you will continue to build anticipation and desire in her. And then, when you finally do touch her nipples in the upcoming level, as well as the rest of her engorged breasts, the area below her nipples, you would cause significantly more pleasure and arousal in her. Stomach. Her stomach is another powerful erogenous zone, but it's also very sensitive, so be very gentle. You can use similar moves as with her chest, i.e. hug her from behind and put your hand on her tummy. Rest it there. Your other hand could be resting across her chest if it feels comfortable. Placing and resting your hand, open palm, on her stomach in this manner can be very intimate, nurturing, yet also sensual. You can also extend the pleasure and connection by using the breath synchronization technique that I shared earlier. If you're laying down together, you could cover her tummy with soft, slow kisses. Maybe gently lick her belly button with your tongue. You could even move your hand or palm or fingertips around, up and down, or in circular or spiral motions. If you decide to use a circular or spiral motion, it is very important that you only move in a clockwise direction, so as to not interfere with her internal biochemistry. Feet. As mentioned in the earlier section, feet, and especially foot massages, can be orgasmic for many women, depending on context and, of course, on intent and technique. For this level or stage, you can really work it and actually turn her on as much as you can. Get into it. Imagine you're playing with her breasts. That's right, really get into it and even get turned on by it. Or even stroke her feet as if you're stroking yourself. Use some oil or lotion, especially if her feet are dry and you're having a rough time with it. Some lubrication will make things go much more smoothly. If you don't have any oil or lotion around, at least warm up your hands and fingers to increase sensation. Massage her heel and the sides of her foot while holding it from the bottom, the sole, and move up to her toes. Go back down, and this time dig your palm into her sole and stroke it all the way up. Be careful if you have rough hands though. It could scratch or sting her in the process. Squeeze the balls of her foot. Slide your fingers between her toes and squeeze the toes, as well as the surrounding areas of her feet, balls, knuckles, etc. But don't squeeze too hard. Do it firmly but with little pressure. If she tells you to squeeze harder, then you can. Tap the tips of her toes and then give them a rub to let the blood circulate all over. A woman's feet and toes have a lot of nerve endings, just like her fingers, so they can give her wonderful sensations and even get her highly aroused when you touch, rub, and massage them. That also means that kissing her feet and toes can have effects that are similar to kissing the back of her fingers, as discussed earlier. It is best to do this immediately after she's come out of a shower or bath. But again, don't do it if you're turned off by the thought of kissing someone's feet, because she will sense it. Level 3. Being sensually and boldly erotic. By the time you reach this level, she will be wanting and expecting you to touch her in more sensual, even erotic ways. She may even start to initiate more sensual and erotic touches or connections herself, if she's a confident and secure woman. By the way, if she starts to initiate more intimate or sexual touching, do not stop her, and don't make her feel weird about doing so. Encourage her by letting her know how good, wonderful, amazing, or hot it feels when she does that, and how much you like it. Hair. Grabbing hair in certain ways is a very effective sensual claiming that can increase pleasure and arousal in women. When you're about to kiss her again, more passionately, slide your palm from the side of her neck towards the back of her neck and grab her hair from the base of her neck as if you're about to tie it into a ponytail. Tug on this ponytail gently to guide her head up and back slightly, without pulling too much on the hair. If it helps, you can place your other hand on her jawline or cheek and guide her head up and back with both your hands simultaneously, while continuing to hold or tug onto her hair or ponytail tightly with your other hand. Then, kiss her passionately. Holding her hair in this way from the base of her neck, grabbing tightly but without pulling too hard, can also be done when she's resting her body against yours, laying on top of you, initiating a kiss with you, or even when she's performing oral sex on you. Neck. As mentioned earlier, a woman's neck is a highly erogenous zone, and it can be used in several ways to increase her arousal. Many female opera singers can actually become highly aroused while singing due to the extended stimulation from repeated contracting and relaxing of the muscle fibers around their neck and throat. Pretty interesting, huh? Sides of the neck. You can get her very aroused by stimulating the sides of her neck. The muscle fibers running down the sides of her neck, from below her ear and all the way down to her shoulder, actually behave the same way as erectile tissue. When stimulated, they become engorged with blood, which increases sensation and pleasure for the woman. Important: always work on one side of the neck at a time. Grabbing or pressing down on both sides at once can restrict the blood flow to her brain. It is how the sleeper hold works, which is used to render a person unconscious, Definitely not something you want here. You can massage one side of her neck with your hand while you're kissing her. You can also use your lips, tongue, and mouth to kiss the side of her neck, suck on it, nibble on it, etc. But be careful not to leave marks or bruises on her neck, and try not to make direct contact with your teeth. Thigh. At this level or stage, you can build on the thigh touching or claiming from the previous level to thigh stroking, as well as the gentle massaging of the thigh. You can run the tips of your fingers up her thigh slowly and deliberately. Then slide down her thigh using the palm of your hand. Go all the way down to her knee, give it a nice squeeze. Then pivot your hand or palm inward so that your fingers are now resting on her inner thigh just above her knee. And then slowly start to slide your hand up while your fingers are stroking her inner thigh. Keep moving it up until you are just an inch away from her hot spot, and move your fingers up and outward towards the side of her leg and hip, grazing the V edge of her panties along the way. She would be expecting you to touch her vulva, which is, again, what most guys would do here. So not doing that, and instead slowly sliding your hand away and outward will build anticipation in her and cause her to crave your touch even more. You can slide your hand down again while stroking the outer side of her thigh. And this time, go down and inward from the other side, outer thigh area, and reach down to the area behind her knee. Grab the fleshy area just above it where her leg bends. Release and slide up her hamstring muscle and slowly grab and release again as you move up. You can actually gently massage her entire hamstring area this way until you reach her buttocks. Slide your hand down her back and squeeze her ass gently with both hands while you're kissing her. Pull her hips closer to yours by using and holding her ass. If you're sitting down, slide your hand up her hamstring, as illustrated in the thigh section previously, and continue all the way up to her butt. Squeeze it gently as you continue to kiss her. Vulva. At this point, you would have teased and escalated her enough by not touching her vulva despite coming so close more than once, so she will be ready for it. You can start to make contact with her vulva while her clothes, or at least her panties, are still on. Remember, you want to drive her so crazy that she wants you to make full contact, i.e. to take her panties off, or even rip them off and finally touch her vaginal area. You can slide your hand up her inner thigh or down her tummy and touch her vagina using a cupping hand motion. Gently rub and massage her up and down with your hand. You could even start this touching, or mix it up with the above rubbing, by opening up your hands and raking your fingertips over her vulva, so that you can hit and stimulate multiple folds and edges. One of your fingers may even separate her slit and barely graze the very edges of her vaginal opening. That's very hot, and can get her to start thinking about and craving what else you're going to do to her later, especially when her panties are off. Level 4. Being sexually primal and dominant. This is the stage where the difference between the masculine and feminine energies becomes even more apparent, hence more magnetic to each other. The male can become more dominant, and the female can happily and willingly surrender to him even more, because she trusts him and knows that he will not violate that trust by hurting or harming her in any way, not physically, nor mentally, nor emotionally. Important. To further clarify, this is not at all about being misogynistic or sadistic. In fact, it's the opposite. It is purely about giving, receiving, and creating more pleasure for your partner. When you boldly claim a woman sexually in a primal and dominant way, it's incredibly arousing for women. Not only does it get them physically aroused, it gives them the feeling of being swept off their feet, which is something that most women don't get to feel often enough in life, if at all. Women are actually yearning to reach this level of intimacy and sexual connection, and to be able to share this level of primal erotic pleasure with a man. But few women do, because so few men are able to take her there in the right way, if at all, without abusing the trust and surrender that a woman would offer him. This is where you can take her even more, using more of your masculine and dominant or primal claiming energy. Hands and arms. Lean her against the wall, grab each of her hands in each of yours, and pull them up over her head. Then look deep into her eyes and kiss her. Women love to be pinned down in this way. You can also do this when she's lying down on her back and you're on top of her by grabbing and pinning her hands over her head. Neck. You can get her aroused by gently grabbing the very top of her neck, where her head joins her neck, in a simulated choking manner. So your fingers will be on one side of her neck, your thumb on the other side, and the soft, webby part of your hand will be barely touching the front of her throat. Your palm may not even make contact with the front of her throat at all. You're obviously not going to actually choke her, so do not push into the front part of her neck at all. This is not about erotic asphyxiation, which is very dangerous and can cause blackouts or even death. Instead, simply holding your hand there, or even applying a little pressure upwards towards her jaw or chin, and doing a very gentle hold and release action with your fingers would do the trick. Her airway and/or the blood vessels running down the sides of her neck should not be blocked or hindered in any way. Doing all this while you're kissing her can be highly arousing for her. You could also simulate holding her down in this way while she's laying in bed, and then reach down to kiss her passionately. Chest. You can also pin her down against the wall or down onto the bed by using your forearm across her chest, your palm facing her, just below her breastbone. Do this boldly but slowly. Do not push too hard or too fast. Remember, you're not trying to hurt her. When done right, being pinned down and dominated in any or all of these ways can be a huge turn-on for her. Breasts. Grab her breasts as if you own them. It's a powerful, masculine claiming move. Squeeze them up and down while gently pushing them into her chest. Doing this from behind can be very arousing for her as well. You could even let her nipples get caught between your two fingers and give them a gentle squeeze. You can also do this while you're kissing her, while she's straddling you, or even while you're having intercourse. Back and thighs. You already know that she enjoys being pinned down. You can pin her against the wall by lifting her up from the back of her thighs just below her ass and leaning or pinning her back against the wall. Guide her legs to wrap around you, if she doesn't already do that by herself. If you've been taking her through all the previous levels, she may instinctively clamp her legs around your hips the moment you lift her up and start to move towards the wall. From there, you can kiss her, nibble on her neck, whatever. If you're already naked, you could even penetrate her in the pinned position. It will drive her wild. Important. Be sure the wall you pin or lean her against is flat and fairly smooth, without any shelves, picture frames, or other edged or pointy objects sticking out. Otherwise, you could cause some serious injury to her body. Also, if she's bigger and/or heavier than you, or if you just aren't strong enough physically to lift her up, don't try this technique. Don't let her feel heavy or fat by trying to lift her and failing, or losing your balance in the process. Buttocks. Touching her ass, grabbing it, squeezing it, massaging it, all of those things are going to turn her on. Start out slow and find out how sensitive or rough she likes it. and how firm and hard she can handle. If she's sitting on top of you, on your lap while facing you, grab her ass with both hands and squeeze it. As things get more passionate, pull her cheeks apart to each side with both hands. Hold on to them and play with them as if you're getting paid to do it. At this level, you can also spank her. Most women will not let a man spank them, but it's not because they don't want to be spanked. It's because the man isn't doing it the right way or at the right time. If you do it right, you can spank almost any woman and cause increased arousal and pleasure for her. Obviously, it's advisable to take her through all of the previous levels first. Also, you have to create the proper context for a spanking by using the dominant or daddy energy. For example, you can build on all of the previous dominant and masculine claiming moves and then flow smoothly into a spanking. Tell her, "You've been a very naughty girl and you're going to get a spanking." Then, turn her over and spank her a few times on her ass. Aim well. If you connect with her upper thigh or lower back, it's probably going to cause her some pain. You can also find excuses to spank her later during the course of the day. For example, if she does something silly, clumsy, or forgetful, you can tease her about how you will have to spank her later because of what she just did. Doing that might even help to make her feel better about her repeated clumsiness or forgetfulness, or something else that she may otherwise feel stupid or embarrassed about. She might even start to do things on purpose, just so she could get spanked for it later. When you spank her, don't hit her hard the very first time. But don't be timid about it either. Remember, you're playing the dominant or daddy role. So start off light, but do it boldly. If you seem hesitant, timid, or shy about it, she will surely sense that energy and become shy, uncomfortable, or embarrassed herself. Open your hand fully, fingers spread out, and spank her ass. Do not lift your hand up right away. Keep it connected to her ass for at least a full second or two before you lift it up. You can even rub it a little to spread the energy all over before lifting your hand back up. Or you can spank and then grab her ass the moment your hand touches it. Try this on yourself if needed to get the right feel for it. Again, remember, this is not about hurting her or causing her pain. It's about the mental frame and stimulation of being dominated by a strong, masculine man. And it's about creating pleasure. However, if she wants you to hit her harder and asks for it, let her have it. After a while, she may actually want to feel a slight sting or a bit of pain. But let her be the one to decide that, and let her ask for it. Vulva. Obviously, the entire vulva of a woman contains multiple highly erogenous zones, and it would take several reports to cover everything. So, we'll just hit on some of the best parts below. Important. Before you go anywhere near her pussy, be sure that you've stimulated all the other hot spots on her body so that she's dying for you to finally touch her down there. If you take her through all the previous levels, she'll be ready and craving your touch. The clitoral hood. Slowly and gently pinching and releasing the clitoral hood, the layer of skin that covers and hides her clitoris, between your fingers in a scissor-like motion, can create a lot of pleasure for her. You can do the same thing to her using your mouth and lips as well. Add in some gentle sucking of the hood, or flicking it around with your tongue, or even the tip of your penis. Outer rim, upper area. If you were to trace your fingers downward from the clitoral hood to each side of the outer rim of her pussy, that area which forms an inverted V ending about an inch down from the clitoral hood is also highly erogenous. Pressing down on that area with your fingers, or even with your thumbs, depending on how or where you're positioned, while you're doing other things to her, can also increase her sensation and overall pleasure. You could, for example, Do that while your tongue slides up her vagina and separates her slit. Outer rim, lower area. If you were to continue tracing your fingers around her outer rim, from the clitoral hood all the way down to the very bottom end of her pussy, i.e. the lower area of the outer rim, you will find her fourché. Stimulating this area with your fingers and especially with your mouth and lips, just as you would her clitoral hood, can be equally as arousing and pleasurable for her. Of course, you can also use the tip of your penis to stimulate sufficiently and drive her crazy before you finally enter her. You can also pre-stimulate all of these areas simultaneously, i.e. her entire vulva, by using a cupping hand motion, as described in the previous level. It can be extremely arousing for her if you reach down there while you're positioned behind her and gently massage this area. Be sure to also gently pinch and release the upper and lower ends of her vagina between your fingers, as described above. You can also gently tap these areas with your fingers or palm, all of which would increase blood flow to these areas, increasing her sensation and pleasure. You could even be nibbling on the side of her neck while you're doing that. Both the upper and lower area of the outer rim can get engorged with blood when stimulated properly, and can therefore appear darker in color. The more aroused she gets, the darker these areas would look. Mix it up. Remember to mix it up within the level you're in, or even go back up to previous levels of touching to keep things interesting and exciting for her. Just because I've listed the body parts from top to bottom in each section and level does not mean that you have to go down the list in exactly the same order within each level. Also, mix up the claiming and dominant moves with some sensual and nurturing ones. Grab her dominantly, but then kiss her warmly and lovingly. Moving back and forth between dominant and warm or tender moves will drive her crazy with desire, passion, and lust. Also, if you continue to push the dominant energy on her continuously, it might overwhelm her. Explore and expand. If you've been able to escalate your woman through all 4 levels, you are going to stand out in her mind and even be viewed as the best or one of the best lovers she has ever been with. After you've reached level 4 with her, you can continue to build on that by exploring more and more of each other's likes, dislikes, turn-ons, fantasies, and so on. You can even schedule practice sessions with each other where you simply explore and learn about new ways to create pleasure for each other. This can be the ultimate level, a level that few men ever get to, because they either don't know about it, don't believe that such a level can even be possible, or they try to jump to this level without taking a woman through all the previous levels. Truth is, women want to reach this level with a man. They've read about it, and they sure as heck fantasize about it. They want a relationship or dynamic where they can completely surrender to the man and let him take over completely, because he'll have learned about all of the things that drive his woman wild. It takes passion. It takes courage. Most of all, it takes trust, intimacy, respect, and deep adoration between two people who are deeply committed to bringing more pleasure and joy in each other's lives. It doesn't happen overnight. It will take more than just 1 or 2 sensual encounters with each other. But with the right partner, and with continual growth, shared learning, and a healthy, playful attitude, it can be achieved. And if you're not into the one-woman thing or the relationship thing, you can still enjoy the 4 levels shared in this report. And you can still become better. We have lots of other products and courses to help you continue to improve and reach mastery level in the bedroom. Just remember to take your woman through each level in the right sequence. And also remember that you can always jump back to previous levels, just as long as you don't skip a level to get to a higher one. With that said, have fun. and enjoy escalating your woman sexually like she most likely has never experienced before.